Lavash brings back nostalgia, a warm memory of my grandmother in the village, sitting by the stone oven at sunrise, baking lavash bread on a griddle over crackling fire. The fire was never wasted. We would roast peppers or potatoes right on the coals. Afterwards, we children would collect fresh eggs from the chicken coop and have a delicious breakfast. Sweet memories. Salam, Nail here. Nowadays, the most popular versions of lavash are made with flour, water, yeast, sugar, and salt. There are now many different recipes for lavash and even patented versions. Today I'll focus on two variations, one made with water and one with milk. Freshly made, lavash is soft and flexible, but unfortunately it dries out quickly and becomes brittle and hard. If you can't eat your wrap right away, well, it turns into a crunchy experience. For meal prep, the traditional version made with water is less ideal, and that's where milk comes in. To keep lavash flexible for longer, modern recipes often replace water with milk. Either the water is fully substituted with milk, or a 50-50 mixture of water and milk is used. Here I have two bowls in front of me, each with 300 grams of all-purpose flour, as I'll be preparing one version with milk and the other with water. As mentioned, to each bowl I'm adding 6 grams of salt, 1 gram of sugar and 1 gram of dry yeast. Then I'll add 160 milliliters of lukewarm water to one bowl and 180 milliliters of lukewarm milk to the other. In the bowl with water, I'll add a tablespoon of olive oil, and in the bowl with milk, I'll add a tablespoon of neutral vegetable oil, like sunflower, canola, avocado oil, whatever makes you happy. Then it's time to knead for a good 10 minutes until the gluten has formed a strong structure. And of course, I'll do that using the machine. Once it has formed a homogeneous mass like this, I'll slightly oil the dough, cover it and let it rest for 30 minutes to 1 hour, or until it has roughly doubled in size. How long you let the dough rest is literally a matter of taste, as the resting or fermentation time affects the flavor of the bread. This means that if you're looking for a bread with a more robust flavor, you can let your dough rise for several hours or even overnight in the refrigerator for 8 to 16 hours. This will impart a rich nutty flavor to your bread, which I personally prefer. However, since this video focuses on quick bread, we'll only allow our dough to rise until it has roughly doubled in size. My dough has rested for about 45 minutes, and here's what it looks like now. I take it out of the bowl and divide it into equally sized smaller dough balls. I sprinkle them with a little flour and cover them with a cloth to prevent them from drying out. After letting them rest for another 10 minutes, we can start baking them, though it won't be a baking in the traditional sense. Traditionally, lavash is baked in a tandoor oven or on a griddle known as a saj in Turkish. Since most people don't have such equipment at home, we'll be baking our lavash in a larger pan, like this one. I'm heating the pan over low-medium heat, set to level 5 out of 9. I roll the dough balls out to a size that fits in my pan. To do this, I sprinkle a bit of flour on the surface where I'll be rolling out the dough balls. Place the dough balls on top and dust them with more flour. Then it's time to roll them out. This requires some practice. I'm not a master at it myself. My mother, for instance, she rocks. She's like wee wee wee, and she rolls the dough while moving the rolling pin back and forth, and the dough turns as she does it. It's quite impressive. Unfortunately, I can't do that yet, but it's nice to have a goal to work toward. A master of wee wee wee. Once a dough round is rolled out, I shake off the excess flour and place it directly into the pan. By the way, there is no oil or anything in the pan. While our flatbread is baking, I go ahead and roll out the next one. Since the temperature is set lower, I have plenty of time to do this. Just make sure the temperature isn't too low, otherwise you'll end up with a crispy dry lavash. I flip the dough in the pan after about 30 seconds, depending on the heat. They are done when they have a slight brown color and no doughy, undercooked spots are visible. Each flatbread takes about 2 minutes to cook through. This also depends on how thick or thin you roll out your dough. Normally, the dough is rolled out even thinner than mine, but I still lack in terms of skill to do that. Once the lavash is ready, I place it on a plate, spray it with a little of water and cover it with a cloth to keep it from drying out. The lavash made with water is done. Now onto the ones made with milk. It's the same story. Roll out the dough balls, place them in the pan, roll out the next one and don't forget to flip them. When a lavash is ready, simply remove it from the pan, place it on a plate, spray it with a bit of water and cover it. I'm all done now, and here's how they look. I'll briefly insert a clip that was filmed the next day after baking to show you how they look. In terms of flavor, I prefer the version made with water, as it gives me a stronger taste of bread, but it should be eaten fresh. Back to the previous scene. Right out of the pan, you can simply spread fresh butter and fruity tomato paste on the lavash. It's one of my favorite combinations. Or, as I mentioned at the beginning, you can prepare a breakfast wrap. That's what I'm going to do now. While I prepare my wrap, let me share a little story with you. There is a thinner version of lavash without yeast, known as yufka. These flatbreads are rolled out larger and thinner. They are intentionally dried and stacked on top of each other, which makes them long-lasting, up to a year. When you want to use them, you simply moisten them with water to make them flexible again. I remember a cool recipe from my childhood using the dried yufka flatbreads. We would break the bread into smaller pieces in its dry, crispy form and mix it with cold natural yogurt and honey, creating a kind of muesli. There is a lot of room for many combinations. It was refreshing, filling and really delicious. By the way, I need to make that again someday. Time to taste. Good old times. The lavash might not be perfectly round in shape or as thin as the ones my mum makes, but they taste fantastic. And as the saying goes, perfect is the enemy of good, and good is absolutely enough for me. Thank you for watching, and peace be upon you. But the real reason I made the lavash today is for tantuni. If you want to know what that is, click here.